I've been driving a rig for 20 years. The road is my home, my life. I've seen things out there, bad wrecks, strange people, weather that could kill a man. But there was always an explanation, something logical, something rational. Until that night, until Highway M117. There's a stretch of road truckers called the Quiet Run. Most of us avoid it, and I usually do too. But that time I couldn't afford the 300-mile detour. The deadline was tight. At first nothing seemed wrong. It just got quieter. The engine of my semi, normally roaring like a beast, suddenly started whispering. The sound of the tires on asphalt faded into a faint hiss. At first I even liked it. Driving in silence can feel peaceful. But then I realized something wasn't right. The silence felt flat, like it had no depth. I turned on the radio. The speakers crackled. The music sounded like it was coming from inside a tin can. Thin, metallic, stripped of any richness. I shut it off, and the silence came back, heavy, unnatural. I glanced at the trees along the road. The forest stood like a wall, a normal forest at night, except it didn't feel normal. The trees looked like they were drawn on cardboard, no depth, no perspective. My headlights lit the highway ahead, but the light felt weak. It didn't cut through the darkness. It only slid across the surface. Then I saw a mile marker, Highway M117, mile 82. I remember it clearly, because about 30 minutes later I saw it again. The same marker, mile 82. I hadn't turned, hadn't stopped. My heart skipped. The road kept going. The forest kept going. And the flat silence stayed with me. I stared into the darkness, trying to find any movement. An animal, another car, anything. But there was nothing. Only those unmoving cardboard trees. And the silence. It began pressing against my ears, almost physically. Even my thoughts started to feel flat. My emotions faded. The fear was there, but distant. Like I was watching myself from the outside. Like a movie. I could see the truck driver getting scared, but I couldn't actually feel the fear. That's when I saw them. Not right away. At first, they were just distortions at the edge of my vision, like static on an old television screen. Then they began to take shape, or something close to a shape. They were figures, tall, unnaturally thin, like silhouettes cut from black paper. They stood between the trees along the road, completely still. They had no faces, no arms, no legs, just outlines. But something about them was wrong. Their geometry made no sense. My brain struggled to process what I was seeing, and yet I could see them clearly. Strangely, I wasn't afraid. It felt like someone had switched off the emotional center of my brain. All that remained was observation, recording. The figures didn't move, but I knew they could see me, sense me. They belonged to that flat reality. They were part of it. I drove past them. They disappeared behind me. But a few minutes later, I saw them again. The same figures, standing in the same places. And there it was again. Mile marker 82. The road had looped. I was trapped. I stopped the truck and stepped out of the cab. The air was perfectly still, cold, without any smell. I looked down at my hand. It didn't feel like mine. It looked flat, almost two-dimensional. I pinched my skin. There was almost no pain, only pressure. The figures stood in the forest, closer now. I could feel their attention, cold, indifferent, like a scientist studying an insect. I climbed back into the cab and started the engine. The sound was barely there, just a thin vibration. I pressed the gas. The truck began to move, slowly, reluctantly, as if it was sinking into something invisible. Miles stretched endlessly. The marker that said 82 kept appearing again and again. The figures watched me pass, with whatever they had instead of eyes. Eventually, I lost track of time, and at some point, I realized something. They were waiting. Or maybe I was. The boundary between me and that flat world was getting thinner. I could feel reality draining away, feel myself becoming flatter and flatter, part of that cardboard landscape, part of that endless loop. Then a thought came to me, simple and completely insane. If the world had become flat, maybe it needed depth again, sound, chaos. My hand found the horn, and I slammed it. The blast tore through the flat silence. The sound was distorted, rattling, but it was sound, and it ripped the unnatural smoothness apart. The world jerked. The image trembled, like someone violently shaking an old film reel. The figures by the road flickered. Their outlines began to blur. I kept pressing the horn, holding it down. The truck roared like a wounded animal. Then suddenly the headlights flared brighter. They cut through the darkness, giving depth back to the trees, to the road. The forest seemed to pull away. The figures vanished. The silence exploded into normal night sounds. Crickets, wind in the branches, a distant dog barking. My engine roared again, loud, powerful, alive. I passed another marker, mile 95. The road stretched forward again. The loop was broken. I drove without stopping until I saw the lights of a gas station ahead. Bright, real, three-dimensional. I climbed out of the cab, shaking. The world felt deafeningly loud, painfully bright, overwhelmingly real. I never told anyone about that night. Who would believe it? They'd say I fell asleep at the wheel, hallucinations. But I know what happened. I was there, on the quiet run, in a world without depth. Since then, I hear things differently, see things differently. Sometimes, when everything becomes too quiet, I feel like the world starts flattening again. Shadows stretch longer, thinner, and somewhere at the edge of my vision, those black figures flicker again. I don't drive at night anymore, and I always take the long way around, even if it adds 1,000 miles, because there are roads that don't lead forward. They lead nowhere, into a flat, silent emptiness. And if you ever end up there, there's no guarantee you'll make it back, and even less chance you'll come back the same. I paid my price for taking the short road. A part of me stayed there. At mile 82 of Highway M117, in that world of cardboard trees and silent figures, and sometimes that part of me calls me back, in a quiet, flat whisper, a whisper only I can hear.